Have you ever tried to build a business between flare-ups? To climb the career ladder while your body is begging you to lie down? What does success look like when your ambition has to coexist with chronic illness? Welcome to Chronic Boss Unfiltered, the podcast where ambition meets women's health. I'm Lily Stairs, and I've built 2 businesses while managing 3 autoimmune conditions. Each week, I sit down with powerhouse women, entrepreneurs, leaders, and changemakers who are building the career of their dreams while navigating chronic conditions. Together, we'll help you dream big while prioritizing your health. No filters, no fluff, just raw stories from the hospital bed to the boardroom. Let's get into it. Hello and welcome to Chronic Boss Unfiltered. I am so excited because we have a special episode coming to you. I am T-minus, I don't know how many days, actually I should, but I think it's like 10 days to my wedding. And with us today, I have 2 fabulous photographers who are dear friends of mine who have been involved in the Chronic Boss community since its infancy. And they happen to be the photographers for my wedding. And so I'm so excited to have them there. We thought this would be a really fun episode. This episode will air just after the wedding while I'll be on my honeymoon. So hopefully, fingers crossed, everything goes well. But these 2 women have been so involved with us in our community. They've shot events for us. They've been a part of the community. They have such powerful voices and they have built such amazing businesses as chronic bosses. And I'm so excited for you to hear from them today. So today I have Andrea and Mariah with me, and I want to kick it over to both of you. I'll start with you, Mariah. I'd love for you to introduce yourself. Give us your Chronic Boss elevator pitch. Who are you? What do you do? What's your diagnosis? And how does that all fit into your work as a creative?
Yeah, so my name is Mariah Gale. I've been a photographer for 20 years now. Also a little bit of creative directing in the tech world and some graphic design, some web design. Lily can tell you about that too, how I've helped Chronic Boss with that stuff. But I have kind of found the through line with my whole career to be I help people feel seen. And lately I've been helping women and especially female entrepreneurs to be seen, feel seen, and be authentic.
What's your Chronic Boss connection? What's your diagnosis?
Yeah. So I am diagnosed with depression, anxiety, and ADHD.
Triple threat.
Yeah, that's fun.
And Andrea, how about you?
My name is Andrea Schwanbeck. I'm the owner and photographer at Brass Tacks Photography. Kind of have my hand in a number of buckets when it comes to the photography world under a couple sister companies, I guess, if you will, but more just like separate brands. So under photography, I work with couples and families to create storytelling imagery of their lives in the current era that they're in. So whether they're getting married or just got engaged, or if they've had their first baby, or if their child's graduating from high school, we're trying to capture the family as that is unfolding. And then on the branding side of things, I work with a lot of consumer packaged goods companies for product photography and lifestyle images.
And Andrea, what's your diagnosis?
Right. I'm a type 1 diabetic.
Yes. And Andrea has done some great work really bringing that out in her photography efforts. And so I want to talk about that when we dive into that piece of the podcast. But for now, and to start, I'd love to hear a little bit more about your experience with the Chronic Boss community. So you've both done shoots as part of the community. Is there a moment that has stood out to you from those events? Andrea, you were our photographer for our launch party, and Mariah, you were the photographer for really the core foundational brand shoot that we first did before we even launched the collective. So Andrea, I'll start with you there. Any moment that stood out to you?
I mean, you hit it on the head there. The launch was just one of those moments where, as far as my experience goes, a lot of people told me I couldn't pursue photography full time and have my own business because of my chronic condition, being a type 1 diabetic. The costs of being a type 1 diabetic and just the mental load that it can put on you can really affect type 1. And here I was in this room with another entrepreneur who has chronic illness, launching another business, but the other people in the room that are defying what people are saying they can't do. It was just a very uniquely empowering and compelling thing to capture.
We loved having you there. And Mariah, how about for you?
I think the standout moment to me was way back when we did your first brand shoot and we did all of the looks and it was a fabulous shoot. It was in Seaport, Boston. And we sat down at Tate afterwards and you and I were talking about like what your vision was for the entire Chronic Boss universe, which has actually you've built it. But that first conversation, you were explaining it to me and I was like, well, I don't know if this counts, but I have ADHD. And you were like, yeah, that counts. And so I completely changed the way that I look at having a chronic condition. The fact that I have a chronic condition, because of course I do, is a good inflection point for me to look at things differently and look at my business in the context of having that chronic condition, which has really helped. Also, sorry, the moment that Andrea's hair caught on fire at the Chronic Boss launch party, that was a good standout too.
Oh my God, I forgot about that. Or I was just so inundated with so many other things like running around.
Mariah has caught me in some ridiculous moments while shooting events, which I'm sure we'll touch on another one at a different point.
That was a good moment.
Yeah.
And you bring up ADHD and how this is something that you didn't even realize was a chronic condition. And we had this conversation actually with Lauren Perna when she was on the podcast talking about her depression and anxiety, how she never considered that mental health was a chronic condition. But these are literally conditions. They show up chronically in your everyday life. They impact how you operate, how you interact with family and friends, how you work. And I think ADHD has really, it's talked about a lot. It's all over TikTok and Instagram, but I feel like sometimes it's a relatively reductive way. And so I'd love to know, what does it actually look like for you in your work and in your day-to-day?
It is a common term that people use just to say that they can't focus on things, which it is fine. Honestly, I think it's great that people use it in such a relaxed way. And it kind of opens doors for people to be more educated about what it actually looks like. So I don't get offended when people use it kind of flippantly. I get kind of encouraged by the fact that they're willing to actually talk about it and use it as part of the culture. In my daily life, so time blindness is a big thing for me. Small tasks, everything feels like a feeling to me instead of a task that needs to be done. And so a lot of times that can pile up and be really overwhelming for me. So I have a full-time assistant that's a non-negotiable in my business, just so I can offload a lot of that. And, small things, object permanence, all of that, it does affect the way I work, but a lot of people say that ADHD is a superpower. I think that is a pretty common phrase right now, and I would agree with that, but I would also say that it's only a superpower when you're in the right container. And so I've learned, especially over the past year, to create a container in which I can actually use my superpower instead of just being hampered by it half the time and using it as a superpower half the time.
So tell me, how did you restructure so that it was showing up more as a superpower as opposed to something that was holding you back?
Yeah, so one example, and this is a small example, well, it's a huge example for me, actually. It's a lot of the small things, but I shoot a lot. I'm a busy photographer. There were some shoots that I was really excited about that were like novel to me, that were challenging, and I loved the light and I loved how everything came out. There were some shoots that like I wasn't as excited about. And to an ADHD brain, you only want to work. Like I bring all these shoots back, I cull them, I spend hours editing them, and I wouldn't feel as excited about some shoots. And before, I would look at that and be like, no, you have to go in order of the way that you shot these. You have to do the ones in order. You have to do the ones that you aren't as excited about first. And like, I'm proud of all the shoots that I do. It's just what's novel to my brain, basically. But what I gave myself permission to do this year is start with the one that I'm most excited about. And that gives my brain enough dopamine to ramp up. And then I have momentum to do the rest of my tasks. So instead of sitting there and punishing myself like I didn't want to do something, I just allow myself to do what I want to do, and I get way more done that way.
It's the opposite of eat the frog.
Eat the frog meaning like do the thing you want to do least first, right?
Yep. Yeah, which I like Mariah's approach better. I think that I procrastinate a lot in the same way. Like I don't want to do this one thing and I make it go first, and then all of a sudden it's like 2:00 and I haven't done anything today because I don't want to do that one thing.
So you've got to use that dopamine ramp up, and you've got to like ramp it up in your own brain. So you prime your own brain with the things that you're really excited about, and then everything else feels so much easier. It's flipping it. It's not punishing myself. It's basically like rewarding myself just for existing with this brain.
This is so so brilliant. Mariah, how did you figure out that this was the approach that you needed to take? What was your strategy to get to this point?
I wish I had a concrete answer for that. I have a therapist that is also ADHD, and so it comes up a lot in conversation about, punishing myself and the negative self-talk and the things that don't work for me that work for everybody else, the systems that don't work for me. And it got to a point where it was just like, if I could do things the exact way that I want to, because I've always demonized what I actually want to do, because it always has been different from what other people do. What if I actually did that? And I did it, and it was like, oh my gosh, this actually makes sense neurologically. Like, I'm giving myself the dopamine that I need.
I love this. I think it's a great example. And for folks who are listening, no matter what, whether it's ADHD or it's a physical chronic condition or mental health, thinking about, could you do something in a different way than maybe folks traditionally do it? Because that works for you. Why do you have to follow the exact rules of what everybody else is doing? Sometimes, we have to show up differently. So I think, Mariah, that's amazing. And now, Andrea, I want to hear from you because you're managing a more, what some folks would say is traditional chronic condition, right? It's showing up physically. Your type 1 diabetes, it's requiring management every hour of every day. How do you carry that while also running a business, showing up fully for clients? It's a very physical job, right? You're running all around trying to get the shots. I've seen you were trying to get shots while you were pregnant, by the way, like in the rocks in Maine. Andrea is like getting down into all of these crazy angles to get these amazing photos of Connor and I for our engagement shoot. So how are you managing all of this, Andrea?
Yeah, I guess just a lot of preparation. So just pretty much planning for worst case scenario. Lily, we're going to be talking through your wedding timeline this week. So that's part one, making sure that I know the exact timeline of the day. That really helps me kind of figure out what I'm going to be eating, like feeding myself, breakfast. I have snacks. I bring extra snacks on top of those snacks. And then Mariah and I actually were working an event where I accidentally pulled off my insulin pod, and we were in Boston, and it was kind of like a situation turned into an emergency situation. I'll put it that way. But it was like, I couldn't go home and get my materials, and it ended up getting sent to a pharmacy in Boston. But yeah, like now that's something that I consider. Like, it's just a lot of learning, I guess, over the 15 years that I've had it.
How does it shape how you connect with your clients? And are you approaching your work in ways that you didn't expect?
Not so much on like the family and couples side of things, but definitely on the branding side of things. I find myself more interested in brands and companies that are solving a problem for food-related chronic illnesses or like chronic conditions in general. I work with a lot of physical therapists. I work with a lot of like not med spa, but like medical professionals. And then my first product photography job was actually a glucose monitor. So I've kind of already leaned toward, those businesses that serve the chronic community, I guess, chronic illness community before even really embracing talking about diabetes publicly.
Yes. And I would argue, actually, I'm going to push back on you a little bit because I remember you've told me this before, that with some of your clients, like your family clients, your couple clients, you do actually very much proudly wear your pump or your pod, whatever your device is at the time. You do not hide that. And you've been very intentional about that. And I think you've told some stories too, where you've been able to connect with other people when you're shooting because of that. Am I wrong?
No, you are totally right. People come up to me when I'm shooting events and they either ask me about it or they know exactly what it is and share a story or two about their family member or themselves. If they are also a diabetic, there's always this like nod to each other of like, oh yeah, you get it. And I do this thing called a pump bump where I'll tap my insulin pod to the person's insulin pod too. If they're wearing an Omnipod on their arm, it's usually a little bit easier. But yeah, I think that now that I have stepped out and been more public with the diabetes thing, having type 1, I do find that it is a good conversation piece for people to feel a little bit more comfortable with me, or just like, I don't know, some people don't want to ask or feel shy about asking, but I always say, You know, if you see me in public and want to talk about it, I'm always happy to talk about it. But when I was first diagnosed, I definitely was a little bit more hesitant to share because I was afraid people would think that I would drop the ball at the wedding or something because if my blood sugar went low during a big moment or something, how that would affect things. And so far, knock on wood, I haven't had anything like that. But I do feel as though now that I have stepped into that, it has been embraced more than I thought it was going to be.
That's so beautiful. And it must be so empowering for other people to see you, this woman who's running her own business and a very successful photography business at that, and running all around and doing all the things while living with type 1. So I love that it's been a connection point for you with your clients. And I also love that you've been intentional about the clients that you're working with, who are making an impact in the space. So I think that's great. Mariah, I'm going back over to you because you had a really big update this past year where you made the decision to close your studio, your physical studio, which was a huge call. I'd love to hear a little bit more about that, what led to that decision. What was the hardest part about it? What surprised you? Tell us where you are now. Just give us all the details.
Okay, so I actually closed 2 studios in 2 years. And leading up to getting that first studio, it was beautiful. It was 1,600 square feet. It was natural light. It was everything that I could possibly want in a photography studio. And at the time of signing the lease for that, like that was a huge milestone for me in my career. I had been looking at that as like, I am now a real photographer because I have this studio, right? And I stayed there for a year and a half, and I had a 3-year lease. And I actually broke the lease because of conflicts that we had with the building management, and it just wasn't financially feasible anymore with the restrictions that we had. And that studio, this first studio that I had in Norwood, Massachusetts, that was heartbreaking for me to close. I look back at it now with a lot more clarity. It's because I had tied that studio to my identity as a photographer and as a person, and it felt like a failure. And when I closed that first studio, it was like, I almost couldn't let go of this identity just yet. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to sign another lease on a studio closer to home because that one was an hour away. And so I did. And I don't regret doing that. I loved having a studio in Sturbridge, Mass as well. But when it came time to re-up that lease, I was a lot smarter with this one too. I was like, it's a year lease. I am negotiating the like heat to be included, like all of these things, right? But when it came time to re-up the lease, it was like, I can let this go and I'll be okay. And so it was that second round of big decision making that kind of separated it from my identity, and I closed it. And I drive by that place now and I'm like, I don't have to clean the floors. I don't have to take out the trash, and I rent other people's studios. So it was all part of the journey.
This is such an important conversation, and I feel like it's coming up a lot more. It's at least come up a lot more for me in the past year personally, where we, especially as entrepreneurs, tie our identity to our work. There are so many of us, especially in the US, who tie our identity to work. But I think as entrepreneurs, it's even stronger because these are our babies. We're building them from the ground up. And it's really hard I've been working on that. How do I untie my identity from my work? It can be a part of me, but it cannot be the sole thing that defines me, which it has been for so long. And that is not easy to do. I'm sure that it was a lot of things over time, but was there any one key mindset shift or trick that worked to help get you into that mindset?
Yeah, for this second one. So I kept getting into this like mental loop that I tie back to my ADHD that's like, if you could just market this more as a rental studio, it would work. Or if you could just partner with more local businesses, it would work. If you could just find the time to make it work, you'd make it work, right? Because I have this on-off ADHD brain. If I could just hyper-focus on it, I could make it work. But the fact is, my brain didn't want to hyper-focus on that. My brain wanted different studios. My brain wanted to do different things. It's that switch from punishing to doing what you want. Like, I was almost punishing myself, being like, no, you committed to this. You have to put in the work. You have to figure out a way to make this work to prove to the world that your ADHD brain is like quote unquote normal, or that you can handle this. But with this like bigger mindset shift, I was able to let go of that and be like, what do you actually want? Like, what do you want? And I wanted to have that money back every month. I wanted to have the freedom. And so that's what I went with.
Yes, the freedom. I love it. And okay, for women who might be listening that are facing a similar moment or challenge, they're thinking about closing something or making a big pivot or walking away. Is there anything you tell them?
I would tell them, and I would tell myself this, not like I don't think I could say anything to my previous self that would make it less hard, but I would say it's okay that it's hard and there is another side to it and it doesn't define you. And it's okay to just do what you want to do because as a business owner, when you're doing what you want to do, you're more productive and you help more people.
Yes. And that's the whole point of us being business owners, right? That we get to choose our own path and have the freedom and flexibility to make those decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And Andrea, you've had some big changes over the past year because in addition to managing your diabetes, running your business, your very successful business and your studio, you had a baby. You had Sam. So can you tell us a little bit more about how things have changed for you as a mom?
Yeah, I guess the big thing is I'm not working nearly as much as I imagined I would be prior to having Sam, which I guess shouldn't be a surprise. And I'm sure anyone listening is like, yeah, no kidding. You're not working as much as you were before you had him. But I had this like delusional idea that I was just going to keep trudging forward at the pace that I was with my business with Sam. And I was already kind of crazy straight out before Sam. So, once you add this little creature who needs you 24/7, and then on top of that, managing diabetes and everything, and a relationship with your husband, and we had just moved to a new house, and the things that are crazy just keep adding on, you know what I mean? Going and going. So I guess the big change for me is just that I'm not working as much as I thought I would be. And it's not because of like lack of interest in work, like people reaching out or anything. It's totally managing schedule of myself. We only got Sam in part-time for daycare, which has been its own unique challenge. So it's managing that schedule. I'm very fortunate to have both sets of grandparents in the town. So they're able to step in and help on days when I don't have daycare. But if someone gets sick or if there's a vacation planned or whatever, it really, the primary care of Sam falls on me. So it can really throw a wrench in opportunities to work. And then just like the mental load of parenthood can be a lot. Every day kind of feels like every day lately, or since I've had him, kind of feels like when you only shave one leg in the shower, like you go in with like, oh, I'm going to get the full shower, wash my hair, do all the things, and you've only done half your body. That's kind of how things have been. And just kind of settling into the chaos has been something that I've had to learn to embrace. And going back to like Mariah, like what you said about wrapping your identity into your business, like it's been challenging for me to kind of step back and also look at my photography studio downtown. I'm not using it as much as I want right now. I did a chocolate photo shoot like a week ago and I still need to clean it up, like there's just a lot of maintenance that goes into studio ownership that when you look at the priority of things that you need to get done, something's got to give. And for me lately, it's been the studio.
And I think, Andrea, you're pulling on so many threads that I think a lot of people feel. And one of the benefits of entrepreneurship is that we have the freedom and flexibility to design our schedules. So while at the outset you said, oh, well, I'm working a lot less than I thought I would. Sure. But you get to make that choice, right? And you get to be present with your son, which is a choice a lot of people make, to be present with their children when they are of a certain age. And if you have the ability to do that, right, that's the ability to scale up. And I know you've changed, Andrea, we've talked about this a little bit. You've adjusted pricing and you're more selective about what gigs you take on so that you can be really intentional and make sure that any time away from Sam is time and money well spent, right? Or money earned, I should say.
Yeah, I mean, my rates have definitely reflected that I am prioritizing family. So I'm not doing the like small Saturday gigs that I typically would do prior to having Sam, which I almost feel guilty about for Mark, like my husband, that I didn't prioritize him like that. But now that Sam's in the picture, that family time on the weekend when everyone's home is that much more valuable. And, for me to put the keys in the car and go to something, I need it to be worth it.
Both of you are really opening up on topics that are challenging, right? This intersection of entrepreneurship and identity and motherhood and us as humans. We're all complex beings, and we also all have seasons of life, right? So maybe right now, Andrea, you're prioritizing the season of motherhood, but then in a couple of years, you're like, oh, I'm ready to like ramp things up again. And I want to be doing more of those Saturday shoots. Who knows what it's going to look like, but it's up to you to decide, which is really great. So my question for you, Andrea, is for women who are a part of the Chronic Boss community who are thinking about, can they run their business and can they have their chronic condition and can they add children to the mix? What's your advice to them as someone who's a business owner living with chronic conditions? What would you want them to know?
I guess to start, when you're pregnant, having a really supportive medical team behind you is really helpful. I was really fortunate to have an endocrinologist that was willing to talk to me every week and adjust settings on my pump every week according to my numbers. And I was really anxious before deciding to have children on what the effect of type 1 would be on my son and his general health, because there's a lot of scary stuff out there. If you Google it, there's things that people will tell you or horror stories. Oh, I know this person that was a diabetic and X, Y, and Z with their pregnancy. And I was really feeling guilty about kind of setting Sam up to start his life on his back foot. So my health during pregnancy was a huge, important factor. And my endocrinologist was understanding of that. The OBGYNs were super understanding of that. And in those last final weeks, I was so closely monitored and felt so taken care of. So I guess for starters, pregnancy, get that medical team behind you and everyone lined up so you feel comfortable and not stressed out about it, because there's so many other things that, just maternal guilt that you feel. Your chronic illness shouldn't be one of them. And then now that I have Sam and he's here, I mentioned earlier, we are very fortunate to have both sets of grandparents in the same city. So they are 5 and 10 minutes away. Aside from my husband, who's also very supportive, we also have them to lean on. And I have my family, my sisters that can step in too. So whether it's family or very close friends, I think having a support system where, if something comes up, or, people that understand how important your business is to you, I think, and also love you and your children, I think that is also something important that I've leaned on heavily in the past year.
Well said, Andrea. Community is so, so, so important. We obviously believe totally in that here at Chronic Boss. So now another question to both of you. I want to hear about something you're really excited about that you're working on. And Mariah, I'll start with you because I know you've got a lot going on over there. I feel like I can barely keep up with each new project you're working on.
Yeah, so I'm piloting a project called Boston Content Club, and it's in response to a lot of my clients saying, I need to create content for my social media. I need to market myself more. I need to get on camera more, but I just don't have good light. I don't have locations. I don't have good equipment. And so I was like, okay, I'll just solve all those problems. And so Boston Content Club is what we do is we book beautiful locations around Massachusetts and we invite people to come and create content in them. And it's also an opportunity for local brands to kind of showcase what they do. And so, for example, we have a content day coming up at High Street Place in Boston on their rooftop. And we have vendors coming in that are going to be doing like craft lemonade and some other local Boston vendors that are going to be showing off what they do. But also people can create content with them and it's a beautiful place and you get to network at the same time. So it's interesting explaining what this is because it's something that nobody else is doing. So it's almost like educating the market about what's possible with content creation. But I think any traction that it gets and anybody it helps to be more seen online, like if it's one person, that's a success to me.
And I think it really already has been just in some of what I've seen. I know you're just getting off the ground, but it looks like it's already been a huge success. And I love how you're always thinking outside the box, Mariah. And what I heard in there was key was that you listened to what you heard, the pain points that your clients and that your friends were experiencing, and you came up with a new and innovative way to address them. So I can't wait to see how that continues to grow and evolve. And it's also a really great way to continue fostering community without a stressful level of commitment, right? People can show up when they can show up and they can be a part of it. And you've already done such a great job building a community of strong, many female entrepreneurs around you. And so I'm excited to see how this takes it to the next level and expands your network even more. But I think it's really amazing. And I hope folks will go check it out after they listen to the pod.
Thanks. Yeah, come create content with us and we'll help you if you don't know how to.
Amazing. And Andrea, how about you? What's something besides Sam, because he's been kind of your biggest project you're working on. And that's okay if you want to say him too. But is there anything that you're really excited about professionally that you're working on right now?
I mean, right now, Brass Tacks is kind of in this like ambiguous phase. Like I'm trying to figure out what the business looks like moving forward. So I kind of touched on it earlier. I'm looking over all of my packages. I'm trying to figure out what I want to hold on to and what I don't. So that's been really exciting. And then I've been working with a new type of industry. So I've been doing a lot of hotels and restaurants lately. And that's been a little bit more manageable for like the 9-to-5 schedule because they don't want to shoot. They don't want you in their venues, right? Like shooting content for their online stores or, the like lifestyle imagery for social when there's guests there, especially as people are thinking more and more about their online presence and AI picking them up or whatever, the consent that people are beginning to evaluate more being in the background of things. So I'm finding that this is kind of fitting more into the direction that I want to go. And I think that it's a venture that I never really thought about, but it's an exciting new venture that I'm tapping into.
Ooh, I'm obsessed with this. It's kind of a pivot, but you're still in photography, but opening up this whole new world of possible clientele that is fun and fulfilling for you. And bonus, it works with your schedule and this new part of your life that you're prioritizing. So I think that's a great example of a pivot. And I think for folks who are sitting there, Mariah and Andrea, I didn't realize that the conversation was going to go in this direction, but you have both been really shining examples of life-changing and needing to pivot. And all of us at some point often have to pivot in our business. We have to make decisions that take us in a different direction than we anticipated. And so hearing the way that you have both thought through that and really been kind to yourselves through the process about what is best for you and your families and the people that you care about, that's been really powerful for me to hear. And so I'm sure as well for our audience. So I want to close us out by asking each of you, what does being a chronic boss mean to you? And Andrea, I'll start with you this time.
I think that being a chronic boss is authentically embracing everything that comes with chronic conditions and showing up anyway. So the good, bad, and ugly, but asking yourself, did you do your best today? Sometimes it's just showing up to that event. Sometimes it's as simple as getting out of bed and making yourself coffee. And sometimes it's photographing an 8-hour event. Did you do your best today? Based on how you're feeling or based on the energy that you have, or I guess going to chronic condition talk, how many spoons you woke up with that morning. Did you do the best of those spoons? I think that is the definition of being a chronic boss.
Love it. And Mariah?
I think it means a lot of things, but this time I will say that being a chronic boss means giving yourself permission to do what you want, failing forward, which isn't actually failing at all, it's just learning, and growing and adapting in an accelerated way, which I think we've all had to do in our lives. And I think we should all give ourselves permission to pivot and adapt and move forward in the same way that we've learned to in our lives.
Yes. And the growing and adapting, that is exactly what I feel like this podcast was all about. And it's a good reminder that those of us who are living with chronic conditions, I really do feel that we're really good at being adaptable and flexible because we've had to learn that, and it makes us great business owners. So thank you both so much for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us today for the Chronic Boss podcast. You have brought so much insight and wisdom and heart and truth and honesty. I really appreciated how honestly you both showed up today. So thank you so much. I hope that everyone will go follow, and support Andrea and Mariah. We will be sure to drop all of their links in the show notes. And I look forward to seeing you ladies on June 20th.
Thank you, Lily. Woohoo!
Thanks, everyone. And that's a wrap on this episode of Chronic Boss Unfiltered. But there are so many other ways we can stay connected. Head to chronicboss.com to access free resources, explore our membership, and join the community. You'll find all the links you need in the episode notes below. If this episode spoke to you, send it to a friend who gets it. Leave us a review or hit that follow button so you never miss a moment. Thank you for spending this time with us. Cheers to you, your health, and your wealth. See you next time.